In life's journey, we must seek to reflect, learn, and grow. Welcome to the Road to Rediscovery with your host, Aubrey Johnson.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Road to Rediscovery. I'm your host, Aubrey Johnson. The Road to Rediscovery is about reflecting on life lessons to learn and grow from them and to take it to the next level and uplift others, help people out who are struggling through dark times. My special guest is a licensed clinical social worker who is the founder of psychoastrology and the author of The Chiron Effect, Healing Our Core Wounds Through Astrology, Empathy, and Self-Forgiveness. Her book has even been endorsed by His Holiness, the 14th Dalai Lama. She's also certified Reiki Level 2, a thought coach, and the host of the All Things Therapy podcast. Let's welcome Lisa Tahir to the show. Hey, Lisa, how are you? Welcome.
Hey, Aubrey. Thank you so much for having me on the Road to Rediscovery. I'm so stoked to be here with you and our listeners today.
Oh, thank you so much. And we're equally stoked. Really, really appreciate time out of your busy schedule to come into the show, share your insights. And I'm really, really looking forward to us unpacking this whole thing, right? So,
Yeah.
Lisa, you practice healing and helping others in multiple facets, right? From what I understand, psychological, spiritual, physical, mentally, and more, right?
Yeah.
So my question is to start us off, um, well, two-part question. Number one, are these different facets interrelated? And number two, um, how can um, how can you explain to the listeners the importance of health in these multiple areas versus just one?
Sure. I love these two questions. And I will start with Aubrey that I've been putting this all together throughout my lifespan, kind of like the road to rediscovery when you spoke about it's living life, making meaning, putting that energy back into life,
Mhm.
and it's a constant, I think, feedback loop in
Mhm.
my experience. And
Mhm.
so I've been a licensed therapist for 20 years. I've also done my own healing work in therapy and through the different modalities, um, Reiki, various energy healing, and I've come to all of that progressively. It's not like I learned all that out of grad school 20 years ago. I've been
Right.
collecting data like everyone listening, how we sort and sift through our life and our experience.
Mhm.
And, everything I've learned, I so enjoy offering it to my clients because
Wonderful.
when I have an aha moment, it's helpful to share that with others.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I mean, that's like sharing the wealth, right? Spreading the wealth. I mean,
Yeah.
because we know that it's we're not the only ones going through whatever it is we're going through, and if we have an aha moment, we also know that someone else can benefit from it, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
So speaking of those aha moments that you talk about here, what were can you share some life experiences or maybe setbacks that kind of led you down this path, and maybe an example of an aha moment that put you on the course to the type of healing and work that you do today?
Definitely. Because of some early experiences in my family,
Hmm.
Aubrey, particularly, I talk in my book in the very last chapter, Medicine for the Soul. When
Hmm.
I was a younger person at 19, my mom kicked me out of the house.
Hmm.
And it was very unexpected and traumatic at the
Hmm.
time.
Hmm.
And, I spent a lot of years feeling like I was unworthy and unwanted because of my own mom putting me out. And over the years, I met a lot of other women who had the same experience. They got kicked out of their homes. And I noticed they were all also really resilient, really successful, and how we all through our adversity, what felt like and what was actually an adversity at the time,
Hmm.
helped
Hmm.
me to develop skills of resilience and flexibility, and just like, I'm going to make this work. I stayed in college and took took buses and walked and like didn't miss a beat going through this unexpected life change because
Yeah.
I valued my education and I knew that like somehow this is gonna work out even though I
Mhm.
wasn't sure how. And that's what made me decide to be a therapist. I entered therapy at 21 and I really fell in love with the process of how we make sense when we start to look at our lives in context of what we've been through. And
Mhm.
so that
Mhm.
was definitely an moments of a lot of years of my life, putting together the gift of what had happened to me by being kicked out of my house and the
Mhm.
beautiful things that came as a result of that experience.
Gotcha. Gotcha. 100%. Um, Man, that's extraordinary. And it just, I don't know, it goes to show that um, there's a lot of rough obstacles and barriers and things that we go through to realize, our true purpose in life. I mean,
Hmm.
it doesn't just hit us when everything's going great. A lot of times it hits us as we're going through something rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And I'm imagining for you too, your show, The Road to Rediscovery, if that hasn't been a journey in your own life, Aubrey.
Yeah, no, and thank you for asking.
Yeah.
100%. I mean, it has totally been a reflection of the journey in my life and times when lessons present themselves to me at different times in my life. And it's the same lesson, but it reveals itself in a different way years later in life, where I'm in a different space. I'm in a different mental capacity to
Hmm.
where then I heed the lesson, even though it sounds or looks familiar from something like, say, 10 years ago. I just
Yeah.
can't put my finger on it, but I'm in a better space years later, at least in theory, we hope,
Yeah.
to where I heed that lesson, right? So that's where the learning and growth comes from.
When I think ideally, and my kitty cat's making an appearance,
Oh
wanting
no,
to tell
that's
you
great.
hello.
Hi, Kitty.
She she likes being on Zoom videos.
Nice.
But I think, yeah, I think what you're speaking to is we do circulate, we do revisit. It's peeling the layers of the onion, some
Yes.
core issues. In my book, they're called core wounds, areas of vulnerability. And
Hmm.
I've discovered that we tend to orbit our frequency around a certain area of vulnerability. It's an area of our lives that we might feel like we have to hide or edit, like we don't feel good about talking about it. So you tend to tuck it away
Hmm.
versus look at it because it makes you feel weak or
Hmm.
like you're not good enough. But
Hmm.
I discovered that when we really look at this area of our personality, of our lives, and
Hmm.
start to send love to it and empathy and really start to expose it to the light of consciousness and
Hmm.
love, it starts to transform our lives. And we can really let go of any and all fears that we've had. And I wonder
Wow.
if you found that in your life.
Well, yeah, I have. And one thing that I have, it has taken some time for me to come to terms with, although now at my age, I am totally at terms and at peace with it.
Yeah.
But I would say maybe 20 years ago, I had a hard time admitting that I need to take that hard look in the mirror and hold myself accountable,
Mm,
and own the things that I should own, and to, just take action, right?
yes.
And do something about it. Take ownership. Don't sweep it under the rug, right? That was a huge rediscovery for me because I'm sure that lesson in accountability presented itself and revealed itself to me multiple times throughout my life. It was just only 20 years ago where I was at a point in my life where I heeded that lesson, right? So yeah, that definitely has rang true for me as well, Lisa, in a big way.
You know,
So okay, I'm sorry.
it sounds like it really made sense to you, Aubrey, at that point. And what you're talking about when we take personal responsibility for our
Hmm.
healing,
Hmm.
that's what empowerment is.
Hmm.
Because we're not saying X, Y, and Z was our fault,
Right.
but the results of X, Y, and Z are our responsibility. And that's where you can start to choose, like, this happened to me. What do I want the end of this story to be? Because we don't have to
Absolutely.
let someone else determine that. We can take it and run with it and make it our mission, make it our purpose in a
Yes.
personal way, in a
Yes.
professional way. And I hear that's what you realized.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. That's exactly what I
Yeah.
realized, And what you were mentioning earlier, I just found fascinating when it came to um, the universe, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the solar system that we create for ourselves.
Yes,
That was in your introduction, and I was fascinated reading that by saying, we have our own universe or our own
we do.
solar system within ourselves, and the people we talk to, the places we go, the things we eat, and then there's a gravitational pull, I
Yes.
believe, that
Yes.
pulls you in that direction of those habits, of those patterns, and around yourself
Yeah.
there are people who are orbiting around you, and you are orbiting around others. I just found that very fascinating. I'm like, oh, we're like our own galaxy here or something,
So well said. And we are, Aubrey, we are our own solar system,
Uh-huh.
and it's dictated, it's set by the thoughts that we think, which reveal the beliefs that we have. And our
Hmm.
beliefs, our thoughts carry frequency,
Hmm.
vibrational frequency that's measurable in the
Hmm.
unit of hertz.
Hmm.
Science is able to measure these thought wave patterns and assign a number to it. And
Hmm.
higher frequencies, we vibe higher. That's why there's all this talk around vibration and vibing with someone or not. We
Yes.
literally attract and repel people,
Yes.
places, and things.
Yes. Oh, for sure, for sure. And that was a big takeaway that my mother-in-law got from your
Yeah.
book.
Yes.
She came to visit for a few weeks, and that was when she picked up your book, read it from cover to cover, and she said, "Man, it's like they're reading my life's story."
Wow.
And she talked about the certain years in her life, a year span of maybe 5 to 7 years or something like that, as far as what certain themes were taking place then
Mm-hmm.
that she related to quite instantly, and said, "I was going through something like that. I did have feelings like this, from a suffering standpoint,
Yeah.
yeah." And so she's like, I need to really focus on the healing side of that as well, right? That the Chiron brings. So,
Yes.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm appreciating Mrs. Betty. Hello. I hope you listen or watch this. Thank you. And I'm sending you love for that feedback.
Oh, 100%. Thank you. She will receive it. Trust me,
Yes.
she will receive it for sure. All right. So let's talk about psycho astrology
Yeah.
and the Chiron effect. I guess first off, can you share? Well, you may have already, and if so, I apologize. I
It's
think,
okay.
but if you can share your inspiration behind the book, and then um, define psychoastrology for the listeners and how it relates to the Chiron effect.
Sure. I wrote the book, Life Led Me to It. This book was an answer to questions that I had for myself and for my clients that I didn't find the answers elsewhere. And I
Hmm.
think, like most things that are created, we fill the gap that we see, that we
Yes.
perceive with a solution. And
Yes.
specifically, for myself, having been a therapist and a client in therapy, I started to wonder, Aubrey, like what is beyond this narrative, this familiarity of how
Hmm.
we've been wounded, the bad shit that's happened, so to speak, for lack of a better term,
Hmm.
and like
Hmm.
to evolve beyond it in a like a permanent way to where we really are standing strong
Hmm.
and stable in
Hmm.
this new version of ourselves. And I felt
Hmm.
like there were moments in my life I reached it and then kind of felt like I slipped away from it, and saw that in my clients as well.
Hmm.
And in
Hmm.
meditation, I just sought asking the universe, what can I contribute here? And that's where I started to hear the word Chiron, Chiron, that I only knew from grad school and a recess of my brain having
Hmm.
to do with the collective unconscious
Hmm.
that Carl Jung spoke about. And as I felt nudged to keep researching this, I
Hmm.
learned that in astronomy, Chiron is a minor planet and comet that was discovered in 1977, orbiting Saturn and Uranus in
Hmm.
this very odd elliptical orbit, and was named Chiron after the Greek centaur Chiron,
Hmm.
who is the founding father of the healing arts in that mythological tradition. And then lastly, in astrology, which I just had a loose, kind of appreciation and working knowledge of. And astrology, Chiron speaks to this area of vulnerability and core wounding. And that's what really drew me in, Aubrey, is to apply. That's what psychoastrology is, where your personal astrology meets your personal psychology, quite simply, and to
Hmm.
incorporate sound psychological principles like Freud and the object relationists that spoke about how early patterns dictate the people we're going to attract, the romantic relationships we're going to be in, that it sets this pattern and frequency for our lives and relating to others. And
Hmm.
so I saw the Chiron effect basically spoken about in other traditions, but
Yes.
never quite linking, this placement in a sign that your Chiron is in Aries or Taurus or Gemini or Scorpio. And that reveals the specific area that you have patterning in. And that's what my book really highlights for people, for you as my reader.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Wow. So, speaking of which, I did want to also ask about how excited was it for you to get an endorsement from His Holiness, the 14th Dalai Lama, in this book?
Such a blessing and a
Uh-huh.
gift, Aubrey. I saw it in meditation, his
Hmm.
endorsement,
Hmm.
and meditated for 2 years, and like just really raising my vibration and changing some things in my personal life to
Hmm.
be more compassionate as
Hmm.
I perceive and see His Holiness as.
Hmm.
And I felt at the right time to email him my book PDF and request his endorsement. And he sent me the most beautiful letter of endorsement and blessing.
Wow.
And it just, you can do anything
Yeah.
is my message to anyone listening. You can do anything, you can be anything when
Hmm.
you become that, when you step into that version of it, vibrationally, emotionally, physically, psychologically,
Hmm.
and start doing some things differently, you attract what it is you want, no matter how wild or big it seems.
Nice. Very, very nice. You know,
Thank you.
Lisa, my background is talent development, and so in this background, I've always considered myself a lifelong learner. I mean, I teach and I train, but I'm also a lifelong learner, right? And I
Yeah.
have to really commend you because, as you mentioned, this was an inspiration based off your experiences, answers that you were seeking and looking for, not just for yourself, but for your clients. And so,
Yeah.
even though you were in a position of teaching with clients, you're still ever seeking for that learning and
Yes.
knowledge, and that is incredible. It's huge, and I think it should be a constant in all of our lives.
Yes. I agree. Like there's the older I get, the less I
Mhm.
realize I know, and
Yeah.
it's like, oh my gosh, there's so much. Like the world is rich
Yeah.
with knowledge and information. I'm just like a sponge. It sounds like you are, just wanting to get all of it as much as I can in this physical incarnation
Oh,
and share it,
totally. Yeah. Yeah. And share it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I've always felt and believe as humans, there are at least two things that are tremendously inherent in us. It's in our DNA. It's part of who we are. I don't care what part of the world you're from or what your background is or ethnicity. As humans, I believe these two virtues are inherent in us. The first one
Yeah.
is the the spirit of giving.
Mhm.
There's just a fulfillment in our hearts, in our spirits, when we give of
Mhm.
ourselves, right? To be of service to someone,
Mhm.
and then of course the second one is uh, to love,
Yeah.
just simply to love and have someone or something in this world that you care about more, as equally or more than yourself,
Yeah.
something to live for, right?
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
I have on my baseball cap that says love wins, because
Nice.
it's such a reminder to me of
Hmm.
what you're saying right now about love is the dominant and most powerful vibration, regardless of what we see that looks unlike
Hmm.
it. And
Hmm.
to really, it's a reminder for me to tap into, to experience, to receive, and to give love in
Yes.
all the ways that we can for free, that doesn't
Yes.
cost money,
Yes.
or the experiences we can buy that do. There's just
Hmm.
so many options.
Yeah. No, there really is. There really is. And one thing I did want to mention or share with you here is, with the road to rediscovery, it's comprised of the four cornerstones to growth. Okay, the first one is self awareness, and then humility, then
Mhm.
gratitude, then service to others. Now, in your introduction, you mentioned that awareness is the first step in awakening to Chiron. I found that absolutely fascinating, and I felt humbly excited
Yeah,
that I'm at least trying to get or move in the right direction
you got it.
of what is first, right? Because the
Yeah.
four cornerstones to growth, self-development in the four cornerstones is the very first one. And
Mhm.
then I read your introduction and I see you mention about awareness being the first step in awakening to Chiron. So that is awesome. And can you explain the important role that awareness and accountability have in Chiron? I know we touched on it a bit
Yeah.
earlier, but
I think it's like something you said earlier around taking this piece around personal responsibility, having the awareness. We don't know what to do until we're aware that something
right,
needs to be done.
right.
And so I think once we have that illumination, that insight, that awareness, that consciousness,
Hmm.
sometimes it's like, oh shit, what do I do now? And
Right,
that's where we
right.
might fight, flee or freeze, that kind of reaction to stress. But
Hmm.
I encourage you, when you have that moment of awareness, just pause. You don't need to do anything right now. The awareness comes because you're ready for it.
Hmm.
Things come, they surface to our minds because we are in a place to be able to cope with them, to heal them, to address them. So
Hmm.
often it's just the having some gentleness, compassion, and empathy because of this awareness that's been brought to your attention. You don't have to do anything yet besides just hold it with loving compassion and
Yes.
awareness. And so I think from that place, then, you're able to have solutions come to you and to ask others. That's why there are therapists and people like you and your show. Like, I didn't figure all this out on my own. I've always had mentors
Yes.
and
Yes.
people to help me. So if you're in
Mhm.
this place listening with an awareness that feels troubling or kind of too big, I'm feeling led to say reach out to someone.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, there's all sorts of resources. Um, you know, um, awesome people such as yourself
Thank you.
having an impact on many people's lives, which in a minute I would love for us to talk about the great work that you're doing. But yeah, reach out, because none of us figured all this out on
Right.
ourselves, right?
Right.
With by ourselves. And even though it seems like we have some of it figured out, we still have a lot more that we want to pick up on. That's why we're lifelong learners.
Absolutely. And I think
Yeah.
that the second piece you brought up, that the taking personal responsibility, in my
Hmm.
paraphrase, that is the part like where the rubber meets the road, you with
Hmm.
you. We are the ones to dictate what our morals and values are in our
Yes.
lives. And so I encourage you to make it a moral value to take responsibility to heal the areas, get the skills, the love, the whatever it is, to feel whole, to feel healed, because
Hmm.
you give from your overflow, not from your lack.
Right.
And so
Right.
it really is like this exciting healing. I think can be more exciting and fun than what it's made out to be.
Hmm.
Certainly you will cry some tears, you are going
Hmm.
to feel some things that are rough, but
Hmm.
through that and on the other side of that is such joy and
Yes.
peace, and like knowing that like I've got this, like I can figure out life. There's such strength in that journey.
Oh no, it totally is. And when it comes to certain people who needs to realize, you have to go through some pain, some discomfort, and on the other side, you have that joy. You have,
Mhm.
just that newfound discovery, and almost like a new breath of life in yourself. Um, uh, some people, and I don't know if it's because of whatever part of the Chiron that they're in, or maybe it's just part of their personal makeup. But when some people go through some very, very tragic circumstances
Mhm.
and some deep despair, it's a lot. It becomes quite easy to not see the forest for the trees and get mired into that current condition. You know,
Right.
how can I guess it starts with self awareness. How can one get out of that mired uh, depth of despair to realize that hey, there is a sunny side of the street. We just have to
Yeah.
get there, you know. And getting out of that funk is part of it, you know. Does that start with self awareness, or does it take a little more?
Well, I think Aubrey, that that's kind of the departure point. It's a necessary part of the process to
It
really
is.
feel your feelings.
Yes.
Grief, it's different for everyone. So there's no length of time that's
Hmm.
appropriate for you versus someone else. We're all so uniquely different. So
Right.
I think that stage and phase of healing, feeling overwhelming feelings,
Hmm.
it's there, it's information for you. So I would
Right.
encourage you to ask, what information does this emotion have? What information does this depression or this anxiety or this overwhelmment have for me? And just kind of sit and start writing down some of those things,
Hmm.
because it's all information. Our emotions are guides and a guidance system to know when we're
Yes.
going down a path that's for us or
Hmm.
not for us. And
Hmm.
we can learn to be led by joy once we do some of the necessary healing work
Yes.
around certain issues, that
Yes.
your life can be led and directed by joy instead of that kind of pain.
Gotcha. Can you help explain for the listeners the impact that uh, mindful meditation has on self awareness?
Yeah, it's so powerful and amazing. To first of all, mindfulness, to define it, is just simply present moment awareness
Hmm.
right now, wherever you are listening or watching, just to be aware of the sound in the background. I hear the air conditioner here.
Hmm.
Just to be aware of your environment. That's mindfulness. To slow down enough to
Yes.
just be in the moment without judgment, without
Hmm.
interpretation. Just, okay, this is,
Hmm.
and just to really let yourself be in the space, and bringing that mindful awareness to drinking your coffee in the morning, eating your lunch. And it might not be the whole duration, because we have things to do and such, but to, even for a few moments, slow down.
Hmm.
It's going to open some spaciousness within you to be able to breathe. And that's how we actually align with solutions. That's how we get out of our problems and start to be on the path of solution, is to just be in the moment,
Yes.
not thinking of the future, not thinking of the past, but just right here.
Even if that moment is unpleasant, right? Like being
Yeah.
mindful, saying, I am angry, or I
Mhm.
am sad, or I am anxious and worried, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That
Exactly.
awesome. Awesome. Yeah, that's where the pursuit towards the solution definitely starts there. All right. So, okay, Lisa, my birthday is
Yeah.
on May 6th. So that makes me a Taurus. And
Okay.
I have been very, very um, proud for years of my astrological sign of
Yeah.
Taurus. I'm a Taurian and I'm
Super
proud of it.
dependable, stable, such a good sign.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
those are the attributes that I've
Yeah.
read over the years when
Absolutely.
when reading about Taurus. So, um, I took a look at chapter 7, which is for the Chiron and Taurus, and I have to say I can truly identify with the wounded Chiron feelings. Like vulnerability, and lack of self worth. I struggle with those early on in life. In fact, I struggled with them, I guess through my mid 30s, maybe.
Yeah.
So that was like 20 something years ago. So, um, those sorts of things I could totally relate to, right? But um, there are some other areas that I didn't quite see when it came to like themes in
Yeah.
ethics or morality. Those types of themes, at least in my view, didn't become visibly evident in my life. They were pretty much cut and dry, when it comes to ethics. well, both of my parents were in the military, so they taught me right
Oh,
from
yeah.
wrong, and it was,
Yeah.
and morality and that sort of thing. So it was very rigid, if you will.
Yeah.
However, I was hoping that you could still explain, because I may be thinking of it out of the improper context. What could these themes mean for Chiron and Taurus?
I have a clarifying question to ask you first. I hear
Sure.
that your sun sign is Taurus, but your Chiron is different. And hearing you were born May, what did you say? May,
The sixth?
okay, the 6th. And do you mind if I ask you what year?
Sure. 1968.
Okay, so your Chiron is actually in the sign of Aries
Oh,
and
fire.
not in the sign of Taurus. So that's a whole different set. So let's see if this
I
resonates
see.
with you. So Chiron in Aries has to do with, wait, let me just double check to make sure. You
Hmm.
said May of 1968.
That's right. May 6th.
Okay, March, April. Oh man, and I don't have my, I'm trying to do some math.
Hmm.
Chiron in Aries has to do with core wounding and your sense of value and worth. So
Mm.
let's see if this relates even to you. So it's
Hmm.
a sense that despite getting a lot, like people love you, they think you're awesome, but there are moments and there are times that you feel like you're not good enough or you feel like you're not doing well enough. So you might pursue really rigorously, like success outwardly, to believe that's what, like, to be loved is a lot of performance.
Hmm.
And it can be this kind of exhausting pattern of running yourself ragged, not for anyone else because everyone thinks you're awesome and loves you, but for yourself to love you, you feel like you have to jump through hoops. And so I'm wondering if that was ever a pattern for you in your life.
Oh my gosh, spot on,
Okay.
100%. And I'm not just saying that; it
Yeah.
truly, truly was for a lot of years too. I've had some areas in which I felt like I came up short, and so I don't know. That just took a hit on my self-esteem and my
Yeah.
self-confidence, and so I don't know if I overcompensated or anything, but I didn't have anything to prove to anyone, and I just felt like I need to do this, and this, and be successful in this area, this
Yes.
area, to prove to myself that I am of value, that I am worthy, that I can love myself. I mean, I was doing these things for the wrong reasons. Everyone
Yeah, and
else
not
thought I was
knowing it,
fine, and not
not
knowing
knowing
it.
it.
That's right.
So the awareness, again, that going back to
Hmm.
our word, kind of the theme of today, your awareness that you
Right.
don't have to perform like this to be loved, I
Right.
think was liberating for you. I
Yes.
sense you liberating to know you
Yes.
are loved. And then whatever
Yes.
you do for pursuit, do it because it brings you joy and happiness, not so that you feel like you can love yourself and that you're good enough. It's a whole different energy around performance.
Oh, 100%. It really is. I'm not pointing blame or pointing the finger or anything,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna just kind of go back earlier in life to where I first started to feel this, right?
Okay.
And I've talked with people about this, and I've been in therapy about this, years ago, and I've
Yeah.
long since exercised this, and and it's out of the way. I'm free of it. But
Mhm.
as a child, I always felt like my father favored my sister over me, my younger
Yeah.
sister. And
Oh,
so,
yeah. That would
you
set it
know,
up.
yeah. And so, he would just say things unsolicited about how great she was, how smart she was, and everything. And I'd be doing all these things trying to get him to be impressed with me and to,
Yes.
and so forth. And so, I mean, he had his reasons, and and did the best he could as far as being a father and everything. Great father too.
Yeah.
Take nothing away from him there, but that validation, I didn't really get growing up. And so, as I got older, I started to realize, man, why am I doing all these things, and when I became a father, um, I my focus was no longer on trying to please him, but it was being a father to my son.
Yeah.
And when I changed and redirected that focus to being a father to my son, that's when it caught his attention, and he started
Mm,
saying how proud am I, how he was of me
wow.
for
Yes.
being the father that I am. And that's all I wanted, is him to say
Yeah.
how proud of me he was. And it's so ironic because it didn't happen as a result of me doing all these things to impress him,
At all.
but it was me taking my attention off of him and focusing on being a father, to where I got that affirmation, if you will. So I
Being
found
your
that,
authentic self as a father is
yeah,
what got your dad's attention. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
I found that absolutely fascinating, and kind of, it kind of made me really in awe of how life works out certain things in certain ways, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
It does. And I think too, I hear the deeper truth in the story you just said, Aubrey, is that
Hmm.
it really is affirming and giving empathy to that younger part of ourselves as we're
Yes.
doing this healing work, to affirm the young man that you
Hmm.
were good enough. You just didn't know it, because we source our value and worth
Yes.
from our caretakers, from our parents, from the environment that we grow up in, and we
Hmm.
look outwardly for that
Hmm.
first.
Hmm.
And it's not until we're older that we start to learn I can self-affirm, and still yet, always desiring those encouragements and recognition from
Yeah.
the important figures in our
Yeah.
life. So I'm so
Hmm.
glad your dad came to a place where he could actually give you that and you could receive it. Yet, I sense that you made that affirmation of yourself when you became a father, like, no matter what, I'm going to be a loving dad to my son. And that's what generated, you know the healing experience with your dad, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. And I find it just so interesting how, different circumstances, from different families and generations, the direction they can take on their course, right? Because quite naturally, if someone who grows up with an abusive father,
Hmm.
and they chastise them, emotionally abusing, neglectful, maybe
Right.
even physically abusing, as this young person grows up and becomes a parent themselves, a lot of times that pattern continues,
Right.
and then there are some cases where uh, the one growing up says, I'm breaking the cycle, you know
Hmm.
I'm breaking the cycle, and the way my parent was to me, I am not going to be this way to my child.
Exactly.
And one of my biggest mysteries that I'm still trying to figure out how this happens and how it works is, what is that determining factor, from case to case, that would kind of not dictate, but kind of direct whether the cycle will continues to the next generation, or if the cycle is broken.
I
Is
would
that?
say that, yeah, it's a good question. I would say it has to do with making meaning, that people that are looking to make some meaning of
Hmm.
and go beyond
Hmm.
just the experience. This is what happened to me. This is what I know. So I'm
Yes.
just going to repeat those patterns
Hmm.
because, my dad did it and his dad and so forth. But to really want to make meaning and change. And
Hmm.
I think some people have that desire. I don't know how much of that can be taught, Aubrey. I
Right.
think just some people are drawn to that kind of curiosity
Hmm.
around change and patterns. What would you say?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think it's a combination of that, and a combination of, between that and the different events, the life events that this young person has growing up, outside of, say, in this example, the abusive relationship. Within the confines of their home, this happens, but all the intricate events that happen, the people that you meet, someone that you bump into in the mall, the guy driving you in the taxi or Uber, your teacher, the person that you're paired up with in school for a science project or class.
Yeah.
All these small things, while seeming insignificant, even the person you pass through the door going into a Walmart, all of these things have a true purpose. They have a true meaning, and we don't know what they are. They're all unfolding in a certain way to give us a certain outcome. We just don't know what it is yet. And so this is just what I think and how I feel.
Yeah.
So with that said, some of these events can be where we meet someone and that person shows us that there is another way of life. There is another way to live, you know,
Hmm.
and having that exposure and that visibility can be a supportive factor in breaking the cycle, if you will.
Absolutely. Empathy. Someone
Yeah.
that shows you empathy.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. No, thank you for asking that because that is one thing I was a true believer of. I just didn't know what other pieces could go with it. And you so eloquently mentioned and shared what you thought those other pieces are. So I appreciate you sharing that, Lisa, for
Y-
sure.
Yeah, Albert, can I throw in one more thing about this
Absolutely.
topic? Because as
Please
you're
do.
talking, I'm having this awareness and remembrance. I think too, the role of empathy, like you said, from someone else that
Hmm.
might be more sensitive and respond loving to you instead of punitively. And that kind
Hmm.
of opens this door of like, oh my gosh, there's another way to be. I think
Yes.
also that we have that decision making power to
Mm.
say it ends here and
Yes.
I'm not going to continue this pattern. I know in my life, I remember being, as you're talking, like 17,
Hmm.
driving at this spot in New Orleans and having
Hmm.
grown up in an abusive home and just how much, words and experiences could hurt. And I
Yeah.
remember saying, I am not going to be like them. Like I remember a
Right.
conscious moment at an exit in Old Metairie, just like, I'm not going to be like that when I'm grown
Mm.
up. It's as little as deciding, this is enough. I am going to be different. And so that, I sought therapy at 21 to get those pieces, fill in the gaps I didn't have. So we
Hmm.
also get to choose who we're going to be, regardless of what our experiences have been.
Absolutely. Totally. Yeah. We get to choose and make that proclamation, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
yeah, there's a lot of power behind that, I
There
believe.
is.
Yeah, because I mean, you can think of, say, a 6-year-old little girl in an abusive home,
Hmm.
and she's by herself with her dolly, and she tells the dolly, "When I grow up, I will not be like this."
Totally.
And that's
Yeah,
power because it
it
starts
is
there.
power. Absolutely,
Yeah.
yes. And I feel like that's
Yeah.
important for somebody to hear.
Yes. Yes, I agree. I think it's very important, and I really appreciate your insights in this for the
Thank
listeners,
you.
for sure, Lisa. So I'd love to talk about the great work that you're doing in helping people heal and realize their healing potential spiritually, mentally, physically, psychologically, all those good things. So on your podcast, All Things Therapy, um, what are some of the things you talk about and outside the podcast, I guess some of the work that you provide for your clients?
Sure. To me, it's all inclusive. Those areas of our lives you just mentioned, emotionally, spiritually, physically,
Hmm.
psychologically, all of those components make up who we are. And so on my podcast, I love to have guests addressing all of those areas. I
Hmm.
always learn so much from the people that I interview. I've started doing some solo episodes also to just
Nice.
share some of my own thoughts and what's current for me.
Hmm.
And I think that healing is occurring on all of those levels. And so just to be aware of that and give your attention as much as you can each day
Hmm.
to your emotions, to your physical health, to
Hmm.
your spiritual health through meditation or prayer, however you address that.
Hmm.
And, time out to have fun and pleasure and laughter is so important in our health and
Hmm.
our wellness.
Hmm.
And, does that answer your question?
No, it does. Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm like, hey, I'm drinking it in,
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm like, keep rolling.
And I love helping clients with this. I love being a
Yes.
therapist, Aubrey. I love just that one-on-one
Hmm.
engagement and connection with someone. So if you're
Hmm.
out there and want to reach out, I'd be so happy to connect with you. And Aubrey, I'd love to offer your listeners half off a first session to work with me if they just mention you and your show. Because
Oh,
just I think we're
wow.
all here to really, you know, be connected to each other, and I'd love that opportunity.
Oh, thank you so much,
Yeah, you're
Lisa.
welcome.
Really, really appreciate it. And yes, we will include that offer in
Yeah.
the episode show notes if you don't mind.
No, please.
Okay, we certainly will. And we'll also include in the episode show notes the links to your website. And is
Yeah, it's
there,
NOLA Therapy, New
okay,
Orleans, Los Angeles Therapy, NOLA THERAPY. Thank you for that. And that's how you can find me. I'm at NOLA Therapy on
mhm,
Instagram and Facebook. And yeah, everything is there to connect with me, to links to order my book. And I know, Aubrey, some of your listeners might have a favorite local bookstore, which I'm all about supporting. So
yes.
you can go in your local bookstore and give my name, the book's name, and they'll
Hmm.
order it for you, so you can keep that business local. I've been doing that in New
Awesome.
Orleans and Los Angeles. So
Hmm.
just, do that. If you don't want to go with the Amazon or Barnes and Noble,
Hmm.
or Books a Million, you can definitely ask your local bookstore to order my book, and I'd appreciate that.
Oh, fantastic. No, awesome. We'll also make sure we include language in the episode show notes for, if you prefer to go to a local bookstore, support local
Yeah, our brick
businesses.
and mortars and our local businesses,
Yes.
it's so important.
Yes. Well, we really appreciate you taking that extra step and going the extra mile to be in support of local businesses as well. So,
Yeah, I've been
um,
going door to door, Aubrey, in different
have
cities,
you?
like just walking in bookstores, and
Yeah.
some of them to accept my book, some don't. But I just feel like we really need to support our local businesses so that everything isn't, like a huge um, corporation.
Yeah, yeah, no, I totally understand, and I totally agree. We definitely want to support those local businesses. I mean, they give us additional options, right? They
Yeah,
give us choices.
and the experience, to go in a bookstore, it's just there's
Absolutely,
nothing like it.
no, it's not. And I couldn't believe today, in this day and age, bookstores are starting to become extinct,
Oh,
and I
like
think they need to be preserved.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
I
how
mean,
else do you sometimes know what you want to read until you go to that section? I know for
yes,
me, and then something kind of stands out to you. I
yes.
can't imagine not having that opportunity.
Yeah, me neither. I mean, another inherent part of us as humans is the connection with look and feel, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, and so if you look at a book virtually online, you can look at it, but you can't feel it.
right.
Yeah, yeah. So all those are very important facets, and having a bookstore is to me, it shouldn't be a lost art or a
I
lost
agree.
novelty, right? I mean, it should be a timeless pillar in the
Yes,
neighborhood, I think, So
absolutely.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Lisa Tahir, thank you. Thank you so much for chatting with us. I really appreciate your insights. Really appreciate what you've shared regarding psychoastrology, your background. I appreciate your vulnerability in explaining some of the struggles you've gone through to
Thank
help
you.
inspire what you do today and what you provide for people. So, thank you so very much, Lisa.
You're welcome. Thank you, Aubrey. Your spirit is beautiful, and I appreciate being here today with you.
Absolutely. I appreciate being with you as well. And now we're going to go to a segment I like to call Three for the Road. And in Three
Okay.
for the Road, that's where I will ask my guests three random yet thought provoking questions that I encourage you to answer in 5 words or less. So, Lisa, what do you say? You think you're up for it?
Let's do it. Why not? I'm here.
All right, fantastic. So here are your questions for Three for the Road. And by the way, these are not cookie cutter questions, okay? I customize these questions for my guests based on their background and their
Cool.
expertise, okay?
Okay.
All right, fantastic. So, question number one to start us off for Three for the Road. Tell me the core message you want people to get from your book.
Self love. Self love, love. Those are the three words that came up.
Self love, love. I like that.
Acceptance. Yes.
Acceptance. Nice, nice. Fantastic. All right. Question number two. Name a good snack or meal that would be enjoyable with watching the stars?
Oh my gosh, the first thing that came to mind is peanut butter and crackers, or like peanut butter and pretzels, how you can buy them already made
Ah,
together.
yes,
I feel like
yes.
that'd be a yummy snack to look up at the stars.
Oh yeah, that would be a yummy snack. Oh, for sure. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So, uh, question number 3 to top us off for 3 for the road. You are sent to Venus, the planet Venus,
Hmm.
and you're going to be there for 1 month, and you cannot bring any type of electronics.
Okay.
So, what are 3 things that you would bring with you to keep yourself occupied?
Oh, that's such a good question, Aubrey. I'm thinking Venus is the planet of beauty and love.
Hmm.
So I think I'd like to bring a journal to
Journal,
document my insights and
right?
experience there.
Hmm.
I'm thinking to bring something like comfortable and luxurious.
Hmm.
Um, so that might be, I don't know, like a nice, like sensual blanket, something that feels really warm
Yes,
and comforting.
yes, yes.
And then lastly, to bring to Venus, I think I like to bring coffee because I do love my cup of black coffee in the morning.
Gotta have my coffee.
Yeah,
Gotta have my coffee. I'm just not the same without it. It's one of the first things it's like a prerequisite to my day, right?
exactly. Same here.
Yeah, yeah. I'm in lockstep with you, Lisa, no
Can I
doubt.
ask what you would bring? That's just such an interesting question.
Oh, yeah. Hey, thanks for asking. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. I would bring a journal. Definitely bring a journal. Um, I would bring my saxophone since I can't listen to music, I might as well try to play some.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And for the third thing, um, I would bring a book. Yeah,
Mm,
I would bring a book. And um, what book would I bring? It depends on when you ask me that question, right?
totally. Yeah.
Yeah. So right now, the book I would bring is I would reread a book called Atlas from the Streets to the Ring. Um, I'm a boxing enthusiast, and
Oh,
so
cool.
there's a trainer. His name is Teddy Atlas, and he's a world-renowned trainer. And he talks about his humble beginnings growing up in the Bronx and doing time in jail, but what he learned from the streets to the ring in terms of manhood, right? And
Oh, it sounds so
yeah,
interesting.
and doing the right and wrong things, and the example of his father, the example of other mentors that he had, and so forth. So, just all combined to make him who he is today. So, it's a great book. I've read it once. I would read it again.
Yeah.
It's told in first person, and so I'm just like, wow, this is awesome. So, it would be that book if you
It
ask me
sounds
right
really
now.
good. Yeah, I hear you. Thank you for answering that.
No, you're very welcome. Thank you for asking. Oh,
Yeah.
Lisa, such a delight having you on. If you don't mind, I would love for us to stay in touch,
I'd
and
love it.
maybe 6 to 8 months down the line, you can come back on the show and share an update with the listeners on what's been going on.
I'd love that. Thank you. Yes.
Oh, fantastic, fantastic. And I'll make sure that all of your social mediums, your website, and the notation of finding your book in local bookstores is will all be in the episode show notes. And we want to touch people's lives in a good way and have a
Yes.
great impact on people's lives. So, um, Lisa, once again, thank you so much for coming on the show.
You're welcome. And so much love to you and your family.
Oh, likewise, likewise. And I want to thank all of you for tuning in and listening. And by the way, newly released is the Rediscovery Roadmap digital course. That's right. That course is just now released. If you want to have an introspective approach towards your personal development, I highly recommend you check out the Rediscovery Roadmap course and learn about the 4 cornerstones to personal growth. For more information, visit roadsrediscovery.com/course. That's road, the number 2, rediscovery.com/course. And furthermore, if you know someone or have a loved one who is going through some very, very, very troubling times, some deep days of despair, and they seem to be at the end of their rope with nowhere to run, nowhere to turn to, no direction, please share this show with them. Because on the road to rediscovery, we want people to know 2 things. Number 1, you're not alone. And number 2, there's always hope. The road to rediscovery, it's a movement, a revolution. And guess what? You are now part of it. We're all roadies on this journey of life. And it sure feels good having you on the road with me. Thanks again for listening. We'll chat again soon.
The Road to Rediscovery is an AJ Shark production.